yeah, this is the bare facts. There's not a lot to this episode. Basically, the mayor gets kidnapped by Mojo Jojo. The Powerpuff Girls rescue him. And then they explain everything that happened, and then they leave. Oh yeah, and also he was naked the entire time. And I had a feeling we were going to get this episode eventually. And in case you don't know what I mean, I had a feeling at some point this season, and maybe we'll get another one that's a bit more closer to it, but I had a feeling at some point we were going to get a episode just about the mayor, mainly about the mayor. And I was a little nervous for it because the mayor, I mean, he's an amusing character, but I don't feel like he's a character that lends himself to an entire episode, like writing an entire episode around the mayor. I think that'll work. And this episode kind of did that, but I feel like it was a bit smart about it. And I think the setup was better than the payoff. Because the setup was very clever. I mean, we're seeing the mayor, it's from a first-person perspective. And then especially when he's captured and he's blindfolded, that's funny, like, you can't see anything, and then you hear the girls break in and all these explosions and noise, like, there was something very smart about not seeing that, even for the 3-story thing they do eventually, like, just hearing all those sounds, it's like, you know the drill. And even just the mayor's line about how he knows where Mojo's lair is, like, everyone knows where Mojo Jojo's secret lair is, like, it's not even a secret, it's like in the middle of the city. But yeah, all that was great. I didn't like the payoff as much, like, for 2 reasons. Number one, it was pretty obvious. I mean, the instant he said, I'm going to impersonate the mayor, I'm like, yeah, he's naked, isn't he? Like, and that gag has been done so many times in cartoons that it was obvious. And the story the girls told, it was enjoyable, but again, it was cliche. I've seen the 3 characters telling the same story, and each one reflects their ego stories done before. And I'm not saying it was done bad. In fact, it was done quite well. I liked hearing the girls all talk. I liked how egocentric they all are, and they all reveal their personalities and the different styles. Like Bubbles, it's like a hand-drawn thing, and he's like, and there was a white, fluffy cloud. And Bubbles, Blossom's trying to be really smart, Buttercup. And first off, Blossoms is all pink, and is that how Blossom sees the world? It's like everything pink for her, and everything's blue for Bubbles, and everything's green for Buttercup. But yeah, I'll put Blossom's a leader, but she's kind of a jerk about it, to an extent. And then Buttercup is just like the hardcore enemy. That's kind of similar to what they did with the rebooted Powerpuff Girls special they did, and like, I'm guessing what the rebooted series is going to look like. But I guess what stopped me is, like, number one, I knew exactly why the mayor... Not why the mayor. I knew why the girls were laughing. It was obvious. I mean, maybe to a little kid it's not that obvious, but to me it was obvious. And also, again, I've seen this story done a million times. I mean, ever since the... I forget the name of the movie I saw it. It was like the... Toka... I'll put up an annotation, but there's this Chinese movie where this murder happens, and like each character has their own different version of what happened, and each one reflects something about themselves. And yeah, even on Cartoon Network, they've done this story a lot. Time Squad did it, Johnny Bravo did it. The best was probably the Ed, and Eddie version they did it, where they get stuck inside Johnny's wall and they each tell the story. No, they tell part of the story. But I think what made that one funny is that each of their versions was drastically different. Whereas this one, there's not that big of a contrast between the girls' stories. Whereas Ed, and Eddie, like, each one was drastically different. And the way they wrote the other characters was drastically different. I mean, you had Eddie where he's, like, rich, and Kevin's a monkey, and, like, Double D and Ed were similar to him. Then there's, like, Double D's story where everything's perfect, and he over-exaggerates how evil the Eds are. And then there's Ed's story where, first off, everything is black and white. And Double D, the best part is Double D, where he's just, like, he's speaking gibberish, which is kind of speaking the idea that half the time Ed has no clue what Double D is saying, and it just... But the point is, with that story, there was a lot of contrast between the different stories, and you really understood the characters. Here, like, Blossom and Buttercup's stories were very similar. They were both them just sort of taking credit for the stories, and I would have liked a bit more contrast, because there's, again, that's the fun of these stories, that you really just explore the personalities and what they think of themselves, what they think of each other, and this kind of did that, but again, like, this story's been done, this type of episode has been done before, and if you're gonna do it, I like these girls. These are good characters, and I want to, and it's to a point where I want to see their version of this. It's like if I saw Gravity Falls, like, and they did this episode where they could do this episode, I'd expect to see, like, sharp contrast. I mean, you have all these different characters. Like, Dipper's story would be very analytical and logical. Stan's story would be very selfish and egocentric. And Mabel's story would be all sweet and fluff. And Zeus's would be very innocent. Whereas this, yeah, I really didn't get that contrast. So again, it wasn't a bad episode. I mean, it did find a way to be clever and enjoyable. And, for an episode I was really worried wasn't going to be particularly good, it was somewhat enjoyable. So yeah, I'm pretty much run out of stuff to say. So, what did you think of the bare facts? Did you think this was a brilliant episode? Or you're like, yeah, been there, done that. Comment and let me know. Like and dislike, subscribe, and this is JStar60, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Until then, take care.